Okay, in this one they want us to write out a sample space, and then they'll tell us what they want the observations to be, so what is the thing that we should actually be writing down. So in this one it looks like it says a coin tossed 4 times in a row. The observation is how the coin lands H or T on each toss. So I have to write down what happens every single time. We'll say part A. So we start these out with a bracket. It's just the notation for a set of objects. So let's say one thing that could happen is I could just get heads 4 times in a row. So what else could happen? I could get heads 3 times in a row and then a tails. Now you don't have to do this, but I noticed one thing that helps be organized is if you can try to change, just like you're counting, change the lowest kind of place value up to the highest. It just gives you a way when you have a lot of them to try and help organize, and so you don't end up with the same ones over and over. So notice once I already changed this one, now I have to go to the next place value, but I'll start over at H again in the original place value. So you don't have to, it just helps to have some kind of organization and kind of go left or right. So after 2 heads, a tail, a heads, I could do H, H, T, T. And so then I've already used up this place value and this place value, so to speak. And so now I could do H, T, and I could go back to H's here. Okay, then I could have one that starts with heads, and then tails, heads, tails, because I'm starting at the rightmost one. And so then I could have one that starts out the same, but has tails here. So move it over one to the left again. And then I could have one that starts with heads and goes tails, tails, tails. So notice now that I've done everything from the right, so the only thing I could do now is change this one. And so I could start with tails, and that would put me back to all heads here, if I'm thinking of H as the starting point and changing them from T left to right. So now I could change this one. So I could do tails, heads, heads, tails. And then I could change the second to the left one, but always start back at heads here. And notice if I'm doing this kind of systematically, see how I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of these that start with H? I should probably have the same amount that start with T, so I could start copying them from up here. See how this is 3 H's, and then this is H, H, T? So these 3 are going to be the same, it's just that all these ones will start with T. So if you notice that, it's another thing that can help kind of, so you don't miss any. So now I'm doing this same one, only I'm starting with T, so T, H, T, T. And then same thing, I'm doing this one, but it starts with a T this time. Then this one, except it starts with a T. And then this one. And then very last, I could end up with just all T's. And it's a good idea to use that sample space idea and think, okay, if there's 2 choices 4 times in a row, 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 again is 8, times 2 again is 16, that you expect to get 16 things in your list. That way you know you're not missing any. So here's the sample space, 16 different things that could happen if you flip a coin 4 times. All right, so part B. A student randomly guesses answers to 4 true or false questions. The observation is the student's answer T or F for each question. Okay, so what could happen? Let's say they could put, I don't know, true on everything. Then they could put true on the first 3 and then false. At this point, you notice you're basically making the same list because there's only 2 things that could happen, true or false, just like here there was H or T. And so you're going to end up with the exact same list, only just F and T instead of H and T. So it's nice if you notice, hey, a lot of these scenarios are really similar. It doesn't matter if I'm talking about a true-false quiz or flipping a coin, 2 options means 2 options. So if I notice that on this one and I want to, take from this one and say, okay, it's the same, except it'll start out with all T's and end with all F's. And it'll have all 16 of these just with different letters. You could even write down to yourself somewhere that, okay, there's 16 things in this list, but maybe we won't write them all down because we see the pattern and we want to save time. Just make it clear that you know what's going on, and that's fine too. All right, a coin is tossed 4 times in a row. So right about the time where we think we're going to have to make another list of 4 things in a row, it says the observation is the percentage of tosses that are heads. So I don't have to write down what happened to every single coin. I just have to say, well, what percent of the tosses were heads? Well, I have this whole list, so it might be helpful to go through and say, okay, well, like this time, it looks like 100% of them were heads. So one option is you could get all heads. That'd be 100%. Looks like here I got 3 heads and a tail, so that's what, 75%? 3 out of 4? Looks like this is also 75%, so I don't have to write that down again. Same thing, like this one's already 75% heads. All right, here's one that's 50% heads, because 2 heads and 2 tails. And look, there's another one that's 50%, another one that's 50%, another one here that's 50%, another one here. So I don't have to write those all down. I don't have to write, if one's 50% in the set, it's in the set. So I don't have to write it a whole bunch of times. All right, what's another thing that could happen? Well, I could just get 1 head, so that out of 3 tails, so that'd be 25%. And notice, like, there's another 25% one. There's another 25% one. There's another 25% one. So I don't have to rewrite them. And then this one, I got 0% heads because they're all tails. So having you write down the percent that turn out heads ends up being a way shorter set. Why is that? Well, I don't have to write down all these separate cases as different things. I don't care what order they come out in. I just care what percent of the times I flipped and got heads or tails. In this one, heads, but okay, and then part D, a student randomly guesses the answers on true or false. The observation is the percent of correct answers on the test. So if you just guess, how many different things could happen? Well, you could get really lucky. And notice how it says percent of correct answers. It doesn't say percent true or false, but think they either have to be correct or incorrect. So you could get really lucky and you could guess 100% of them right. Or you could get 3 out of 4. Or you could guess 2 right and 2 wrong. Or you could get 3 wrong and 1 right. Or you could get really unlucky and guess none of them right. So notice that's the same list. If there's only 4 options, you could get right or wrong, then those are the only 4 things that can happen.